Hello and welcome to TradeFlow Television,
bringing you valuable analysis and actionable intelligence
through the global commodity markets.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Agriculture ministers from more than 70 countries urged governments to keep world food trade open to ensure food supplies during the COVID-19 pandemic, a communiqué after a virtual meeting on Friday said. The meeting was part of the Global Forum for Food and Agriculture conference in Berlin, and the communiqué said that despite COVID-19, global food supply and international markets have been relatively stable. But food export restrictions imposed by some countries during the pandemic should have time limits, it said.
Iran's oil exports have climbed in recent months and its sales of petroleum products to foreign buyers reached record highs despite U.S. sanctions, the oil minister said on Friday. Bijan Zanganeh did not give figures but said exports of crude had recently risen significantly despite tough sanctions that were imposed since 2018, when the administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew from a nuclear pact. We set the highest record of exports of refined products in the history of the oil industry during the embargo period, the minister said, according to his ministry's news agency Shana.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Oil prices settled lower on Friday, weighed down by a build in U.S. crude inventories and worries that new pandemic restrictions in China will curb fuel demand in the world's biggest oil importer. Brent crude futures fell 69 cents to settle at $55.41 a barrel, for a 0.4% change on the week. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 86 cents, or 1.6%, settling at $52.27, nearly unchanged from the beginning of the week. Overall U.S. crude inventories surprisingly rose by 4.4 million barrels in the most recent week, versus expectations for a draw of 1.2 million barrels.
After being hit by the pandemic, oil companies in South Africa are unlikely to upgrade refineries to cut sulfur emissions unless the government allows them to pass the costs on to consumers or offers other support, the South African Petroleum Industry Association (SAPIA) says. New rules requiring oil refineries in South Africa to cut diesel sulfur levels to 10 parts per million ppm had been due to come into effect in 2017 but have been postponed indefinitely due to a disagreement between the government and SAPIA, which represents oil majors, over who will cover the cost. SAPIA has estimated that it would cost $3.9 billion for all refineries in the country to upgrade to meet the new rules.
Moving on to metal price moves.
Gold prices fell more than 1% on Friday as a broader market sell-off weighed on the metal along with a firm dollar, while hopes for further stimulus from the U.S. put bullion on track for its first weekly gain in 3. Spot gold fell 0.8% to $1,855.23 per ounce by 1:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, retreating from a 2-week high hit on Thursday. The metal was up 1.5% so far this week. U.S. gold futures settled down 0.5% to $1,856.20.
Copper fell on Friday alongside stock markets and oil prices as poor economic data and new coronavirus restrictions in China, the world's biggest raw materials consumer, weakened the outlook for economic growth and demand. But losses eased after U.S. factory figures showed activity surging to its highest level in nearly 14 years in early January. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was down 0.2% at $8,005 a ton at 1700 GMT, off an earlier low of $7,864.50. The metal reached an 8-year high of $8,238 on January 8.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Boeing Co. said on Friday it will begin delivering commercial airplanes capable of flying on 100% biofuel by the end of the decade, calling reducing environmental damage from fossil fuels the challenge of our lifetime. Boeing's goal, which requires advances to jet systems, raising fuel blending requirements, and safety certification by global regulators, is central to a broader industry target of slashing carbon emissions in half by 2050, the U.S. planemaker said. It's a tremendous challenge, it's the challenge of our lifetime, Boeing Director of Sustainability Strategy Sean Newsom told Reuters. aviation is committed to doing its part to reduce its carbon footprint. That is all for today's news on the commodity market. Stay tuned to TradeFlow TV as we continue to provide you with more updates. You can also follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow TV1, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop.